Currently employed by MGM Resorts. Item 6 on today's agenda requests the board approval for funding expenditures related to the 2020 NFL Draft. Bellagio, which is an entity of my employer, has entered into a private agreement with NFL for event activities to take place on the premises. Because of my private interest could be affected by item 6, I will be abstaining from any discussion or vote on this item.
Thank you. Duly noted.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 6 relates to the NFL draft and the LVCVA's budget for that draft, which we are requesting an amount not to exceed $2.4 million. And we are also requesting that you, for this particular situation, authorize me to execute the necessary documents along the way up to contracts not exceeding $500,000. In your board book, there is an outline of the budget line items. There are a couple that I think deserve a little extra explanation than what is in the book in that brief outline of the budget. From a public safety standpoint, in that line item, that includes work that Metro would do, work that Clark County Fire Department would do, as well as emergency medical standby equipment that would be required for the event. So in total, that would not exceed $500,000. As a part of the bid package and a part of the requirements from the NFL in order to host the draft, the destination is required to have a signature event following, I think, the first day's first round. We're still working on that. We have several different ideas. That event would not cost more than $500,000. There are 17 structures that have to be approved. They're temporary structures with respect to the draft layout. So the permitting process with the county would not exceed $300,000 for that. Volunteer costs, which seems to be the one, well, no, the volunteer costs include uniforms and meals. We'll have a host of volunteers that just help people navigate during the draft, and we are getting them to be volunteers by giving them a T-shirt. So it's an easy recruiting process. The shuttle cost seems to be the one thing we know exactly what it's going to cost. Everything else is a round number. That's a specific number. But we want to make sure that people in the community, our residents, can easily get to the draft and participate in this. So we have worked with RTC and potentially others to put together park and rides so that it'll reduce traffic around the draft and make it a better experience for Southern Nevadans. And then in that other category, and these are contracts that would currently be within my signature authority. There are a number of different topics there. So we're required to transport prospects and their guests as they come to town. There will be certain insurance costs associated with the draft. We'll have social media activation. Fletch talked about our activation at in the Super Bowl media area so that we could mostly meet with media that will be covering the draft, and they can get a sense of what they'll be reporting on once they're here. There will be an LVCVA client hospitality aspect to the draft that's included in that amount, and then we'll have some printed collateral. So that total package will not exceed that $500,000. And then we have a contingency of $300,000 built in for some of the unknown unknowns. So that is our request. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I do want to thank any number of people who have been involved in this process. It's been work over the last 8 months just to get to this point, and there's a lot of work to do between now and the time the draft actually takes place, and that certainly includes the NFL and properties up and down the Strip and throughout the destination, Clark County Metro, Clark County Fire, the county commission have all been very involved in this process. The NFL has been in town probably on average every 6 weeks for 2 or 3 days of very solid meetings where meetings are happening simultaneously on different subjects. So it has been a lot of work. I also want to thank our team that's been led by Brian. He has taken this on, done a fabulous job. We're excited about this event and what it means to the destination. And again, happy to answer any questions you have, Mr. Chairman.
Comments or questions?
One question, please. Have we, I believe it was Nashville last year that held the draft?
Yes.
The cost relative to what they spent and the economic benefit that we expect relative to what they experienced?
Councilman Rapson, yeah, we were actually in Nashville last year. The event's different here than it was in Nashville. Our understanding, and Nashville was helpful in helping us understand these things, that they spent about $4 million, but the draft was all on public space. So one of the reasons that it is less expensive for the LVCVA than it was for Nashville is that the expenses that are incurred on the sites of this draft, which are Caesars and MGM, are being paid by Caesars and MGM. From an LVCVA standpoint, it reduces that expense because of that.
Okay. And economic benefit, have we made that analysis?
Well, Nashville made put forth an estimate on what the economic impact was in Nashville. I'm not a big fan of those numbers, and so I frankly think we will have higher visitation than Nashville. I think the economic impact will be at least as great, if not greater, than it was in any other city. The types of events here, and this is, I'm just stealing from a marketing campaign, it only happens in Las Vegas. And so I am sure that the size of this draft will be the largest out there. Comparing those numbers is something I could do, but I don't know that it would be all that worthwhile.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilwoman Goins-Brown?
Have discussions been had with, especially locals, getting to the event as far as resorts that charge for parking and those that don't, that they are not price gouged because they know they can double, triple prices if someone needs to park there? And then are they designating areas in those parking structures for locals?
Councilwoman Greens-Brown, we have had those conversations, and it's one of the major reasons that we are providing the park and ride services. The properties are free to do what they want when it comes to pricing in their garages. I don't know that they plan to demand price, and a part of the concern has been from some of the properties that do not charge for parking that their properties will be overrun as a result of the draft. So we're working on both sides of that conversation and still have a little work to do, but it's really the reason for the park and ride service.
And if I may add,
Yeah,
Steve,
sure.
The other transportation option that we are offering is we will conduct a park and ride using the monorail. Our parking lots will be freed up. NAB closes out and moves out of our building the day before the draft begins. So we will have our parking lots here open for locals, and we're working with the monorail to continue their locals pricing for anybody that would park here and monorail into the draft locations.
Commissioner Wheatley?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to ask, in my briefing, we talked about the marquee event that's a requirement.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that we are going to, talk about when? Or is that like what happens at this meeting stays at this meeting? Only at this meeting? Is that what this is?
Only at this
Only at
meeting,
this meeting?
Commissioner. So we have been vetting a couple of options for that marquee event. Part of it being a marquee event is we want there to be a bit of surprise quality.
Okay.
But we've been working with our partners at R&R Partners, who are working through a couple of what I think will be only Vegas kinds of executions.
Sounds like an only event. All right, and then secondly, I wanted to ask you my notes here. First of all, let me thank you, Brian and Val, and the other team members from LVCVA, as well as Rob, all of y'all. Thank you so very much for working closely with Clark County. Ms. Hill, you know, we emphasized, and the chairman emphasized, how important it is to keep not only our county manager as well as our public works department and everybody in the loop, because that's going to be so vitally important as they close down those streets there. And the communications, how is that going so far as it relates to, we have the new electronic signs that are starting to light up now. When will those go into effect as it relates to what we talked about in our NFL briefings as it relates to letting locals know closures, updates? We talked about in that, Commissioner Brown, I think, asked for a specific phone number. That's been released, as well as an email address that people can log on to get the latest updates of what's happening.
Commissioner, there are a number of measures afoot to communicate to locals, to business operators, to the employees, the 100,000 plus employees that come to the Strip every day. Those include things like a dedicated website landing page that will provide updated information regularly on draft activities, a link to the NFL site, which will provide a little bit more global but certainly comprehensive draft-related information. The electronic signage that you referred to, we're working with FAST and others. We will also be renting additional signage to help get the message out, to make sure that folks are aware of the traffic modifications. That work will begin approximately 2 weeks pre-draft, and we're taking advice from the experts who are telling us if you put it up too soon, people forget or tune it out. And if you put it up too late, obviously there are consequences on the other side of that equation. So we do have a pretty comprehensive plan, and we are also borrowing a plan from the very successful Las Vegas Marathon communication strategy, working through resort partners as well as media partners to get the word out about how the destination will be affected by what's going to be inevitably a great activity, but which will also inevitably have a bit of an effect.
Okay,
And
thank
if I may add to Brian's comments, Commissioner, we also are working closely with the local media. They've all expressed interest in being partners with us on this event, and we've had higher level discussions to have them as a partner to convey a lot of these details and in an ongoing way. And so we appreciate their partnership and willingness to do that as well.
Thank you, Lori. I appreciate that. And finally, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Hill, in your line item expenditures here under the volunteer-related costs. It's going to mean so much to locals to be able to be a part of this. And thank you for offering them a T-shirt and a sandwich. That means that's going to go a long way, and we really do appreciate that. We've gotten so many phone calls from the community interested in participating and being a part of this whole experience. And I just think that this speaks volumes to making sure that they have a great experience and that the community gets an opportunity to participate. So thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. No other comments or questions? Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion on the floor. Please cast your vote. Motion carries.